Good afternoon. I propose to deal with the subject today in two parts. First, we will discuss about why global chemical industry is now at the crossroads. Subsequently, we will discuss about the challenges and opportunities facing the Indian chemical industry, particularly Indian petrochemical industry, and then also discuss what could be some possible solutions for the problems and issues faced by the Indian chemical industry. In the case of the global chemical industry has been moving on, developing substantially new products, eco-friendly process technologies, and also substitution possibilities to ensure that the level of use of fossil fuel is to be eliminated as much as possible. Excellent discoveries have been made, and all these efforts are very laudable. However, the challenge facing the global chemical industry is the need to reduce the emission level, which is causing global climate problems, global warming, and actually what many people think it is leading to a global climate crisis. The ball is clearly in the court of the chemical industry to find a solution for these emission issues. At least that is what the perception of the world community. In this kind of situation, what is really happening here is, in spite of the fact of several global climate meets that have taken place in the past, and several promises and pledges made by different countries about reducing the emissions, the ground reality is the production of fossil fuel, such as crude oil, coal, natural gas, are not coming down. On the other hand, they are really increasing. Let us take a few case studies. For example, in the case of fossil fuel coal, around 20 countries now have announced new coal-based thermal power projects, and some of the countries announcing more than one coal-based chemical project. India and China together have a number of coal-based projects announced, which constitute around 80% of the global coal-based thermal project announced so far. In the case of China, the government of China has announced that it would set up around 100 coal-based thermal power projects in the coming years. This strategy of government of China to increase the number of coal-based thermal projects directly comes in conflict with the announcement of Chinese government that they are going to reduce the emission. Now, given this fact that the global fossil fuel production is not increasing, on the other hand, steps are being taken to set up more coal-based projects, and what is going to be the reality? What is going to be the future? It's not only the coal-based projects. Even in the case of the crude oil, in the year 2022, the global production of the crude oil has increased by nearly 5.6% over the production of crude oil in the year 2021. Now the question is, why, in spite of the promises made by several governments, the production of fossil fuel is not coming down, while the consumption of fossil fuel is not coming down? The fact is that the producers and as well as the consumers would come forward to produce less or consume less if there would be viable, technologically and economically or feasible alternate options. Those alternate options are yet to see the light of the day. Of course, the global chemical industry and research agencies have been striving their level best to identify the appropriate alternate options for the fossil fuel. The number of countries are now increasing the production of the renewable energy power. Huge research efforts are going on to develop what they call as the hydrogen economy and several other steps. In spite of these reasons, the fact is we are not able to predict today at what would be the ultimate date when the entire fossil fuel will be removed from the scene, or when alternate options, economically and technologically feasible options, would be really brought into the picture and brought into the production level. It is now figured data are made unpredictable. In this scenario, now it is very evident that there is huge concern about amongst the global community about the emission issues, global warming, and possibly what they call as ecological disaster. Now, this feeling of unease is clearly evident. And most of these world community, seem to think that the responsibility for reducing the emission squarely falls on the shoulders of the global chemical industry. To what extent such observation is appropriate is a matter of doubt, because it is not only the chemical industry, there are other agencies like transportation, mining, agricultural operations that also cause emissions. But the fact is, chemical industry has to accept the responsibility for reducing the emission. That is the expectation. Recently, number of leading chemical industries in Europe have approached the European Commission to quickly work out a roadmap for transition towards a zero emission target. The chemical industries have pointed out that it requires a massive investment, and that they have urged the European Commission to work out an action plan involving not only technology advancement, but also to bring about necessary investment. Given this kind of a scenario, with worldwide apprehension about the climate change and expectation from the chemical industries, the investors around the world are now slowly coming to develop some sort of a doubt about the long-term stability of the petrochemical industries. They are afraid in case the emissions are not being brought down and petrochemical industries are called as the culprits for not bringing down the emission, there will be a negative perception about the petrochemical industry among the world community in the coming years. In such conditions, the investors are increasingly seem to be reluctant, or at least now doing double or triple thinking before investing in the chemical industry. In the course of time, if things are not going to become better, it is quite possible that the global investors will cast their eyes elsewhere and look for other investment options apart from the global chemical industry. Now, this is a very grim scenario that is threatening the future stability of the petrochemical industry in the global arena. Now, this is the fact that we say that the global chemical industry is at the crossroad today. One road is possibly the conditions where emissions are solved and new options have been developed. The other road is a situation where options are not developed and global chemical industries are still called causing emissions, and investors turn away from the global chemical industry. These are the two crossroads on which chemical industry is confronted today. That's why we call this today's situation as the global chemical industry at the crossroads. Now, having seen this, let us have a look at the Indian scenarios. Now, what is the challenges and opportunities that are facing the Indian chemical industry? Let's have a look at this. Now, basically, in the Indian chemical industry, there are three roadblocks that can be readily identified. Number one roadblock is the heavy dependence on the import of crude oil and natural gas. Today, India is importing around 240 million tons of crude oil per year. India is also importing around 32 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Indian import of crude oil is now 80% of the requirement of Indian crude oil is made by import. Similarly, 50% of Indian requirement of natural gas is now made by import. But the ground reality is the production of crude oil and natural gas are remaining virtually stagnant in the country over the years. With stagnant production conditions, the demand is still increasing at around 6 to 7% per year. Now, it's very difficult to visualize what is going to be a scenario in the coming years with such heavy dependence on the crude oil import and natural gas import. As present, it is estimated that around 28% of the foreign exchange earnings of India are going towards the import of crude oil and natural gas. If this figure is going to further increase, it will be a very, very crisis situation for the country. In spite of these conditions, Government of India has now announced that it would set up new refineries to a level of around 54.6 million ton per annum for crude oil refining. If it is done in the next few years, then the import dependence are going to further increase. I do not know what is the game plan of Government of India in announcing such huge capacity buildup for refineries, whereas the fact is the production of crude oil and natural gas is stagnant in the country and import dependence is increasing. That is number one roadblock for the country. Then second issue for the roadblock in the country is high level of import dependence on the chemicals, petrochemicals, APIs, and intermediates. Substantial quantity of Indian requirement of these chemicals are now imported. The reason for this is the inability to create enough capacity for the production of these materials for several reasons, which we will discuss a little later. And the third issue that has to be kept in view is that with the economic growth in the country, which has really caught the global attention, now what is happening here in today India is demand is steadily increasing for chemicals, petrochemicals, and other intermediate chemicals in multiple directions. While demand is steadily increasing, the fact is we are not able to increase the supply. So what India faces today is not demand constraint, it is a supply constraint. That figure has to be necessarily kept in view. Now, given this particular factor, now we will go and discuss about the steps taken by the Government of India to reduce the import dependence on crude oil and natural gas. Government of India has announced a number of schemes like ethanol blending with petrol, massive boost for renewable energy, focus on the hydrogen economy, promotion of electric vehicles, afforestation, and so on. In spite of all these factors that is being done, with the capacity utilization of renewable energy power likely to be only 20% to 22%, and being a seasonal power, and other factors being inadequate, considering the growth in demand for crude oil and natural gas, the steps taken by the Government of India so far is totally inadequate to meet the global zero emission target that the Government of India has promised to the world community. So these steps or strategies are certainly not enough. It is not to say that they are inappropriate. They are not appropriate. They are extremely relevant strategies. But the fact is, these strategies are not enough. Therefore, alternate options have to be thought about. One of the alternate options could be algae biofuel, about which we will discuss a little after a few minutes. Now we will look into a scenario as to about the import dependence of the chemicals in India. Now look at these figures. India's producer is producing methanol, number of units are in operation. India's present annual import of methanol is around 2.6 million ton per annum. As against this, production of methanol is only around 1,67,000 ton per annum. India's import of polyvinyl chloride is 2.4 million tons per annum. Production is hardly around 1.4 million ton per annum. India imports around 1 million ton of styrene. There is no production of styrene in India today. To take the case of titanium dioxide, rutile pigment. The case of titanium dioxide, India imports around 2,40,000 ton per annum, whereas the domestic production is 30,000 tons per annum. This is a very strange case, particularly with regard to titanium dioxide, because the raw material for the production of titanium dioxide is ilmenite ore, which is adequately available in India. It is estimated that the present deposits of ilmenite ore in the country is around 12% of the total world reserves. In spite of having so much of ilmenite ore, we are still importing large quantity of the titanium dioxide. Now, the production of titanium dioxide in India, being only around 30,000 ton per annum, it is less than 0.5% of the total world production. In other words, In spite of having around 12% of the world reserves of ilmenite in India, our production of titanium dioxide is only around 0.5% or less than that of the total world production. How to explain this scenario? Obviously, to go deeper into each one of the products, you would find that there is no reason for not building capacity. That is the ground reality that we come to conclusion we come to at. Now let us discuss why is this supply constraint? Why we are not able to build up the capacities? What could be the reason for that? Let us look into that a bit carefully. Number one factor is what we call as the feedstock scenario. India imports crude oil. India imports natural gas. So the price at which crude oil is available for India, the price at which natural gas is available in India, this price is much higher than the price available for some producers in those countries where crude oil and natural gas are really available. When you make based on the imported crude oil and imported natural gas, you make the derivative products, inevitably you find a situation where the production cost of products, derivative products made in India from crude oil or natural gas is much higher than the production costs in other countries. Therefore, because of the huge dependence on import of crude oil and natural gas, whose price is always fluctuating all the time, and India having no particular advantage in this, you will find the feedstock constraint is one of the major reasons for India's inability to create enough capacity. Number two factor which we can do is investment constraint. See, there are not many investors in the country. There are not many project promoters in the country who have the capability to invest very large amount in globally sized chemical projects. Most of the projects set up in India are of tiny scale. They are not globally competitive scale, which we don't have the money to put that. In such conditions, what is the alternative? Alternative is invite equity participation from abroad. That's one aspect. Second aspect about this here is lack of technology in India. See, for most of the chemical products in India, we are dependent on global technology suppliers. You take, for example, urea. There are a number of urea plants in operation in the country. Still, for over several years or several decades, in spite of it, for setting up a new urea plant, we are going ahead asking for technology from abroad. So there is some sort of a technology crisis in this country today, where domestically developed technologies are not available for most of the chemical projects. The fact is, it's not only the large-scale projects. Even in the case of the medium-scale projects, you find a situation where technologies are not available. Because of the lack of technology availability from domestic source and high cost price demanded for technology from abroad, there are a number of potential chemical projects that remain stranded today, and we are not able to solve this problem. Now, this technology issue, this investment constraint issue, can be sorted out if global investors come into the country and global technology companies come and set up projects in India. That means we need to have joint ventures. Here there is a problem. The problem is when the global companies come to India, sharing their technology and sharing their global market, obviously they want to have high equity participation in the company to have some sort of control mechanism. But the private sector companies in India, most of them are family controlled. Because of the family control in the company and vested interest in ensuring that the family control is retained, many private companies are unwilling to give equity participation to the international companies who come forward to give technology and share the market. They are unwilling to give them equity participation. This kind of situation has prevented several international companies coming from collaborating with India. A number of case studies can be readily cited. Then one more problem here is the high level of import dumping and for the products from abroad. Now, when import dumping takes place at a price which is lower than the cost of production in India, obviously all the Indian buyers will opt for the imported product. But then the government of India has a duty to protect the domestic industry. So what is the way out? The immediate way out is put up some anti-dumping duty or put up some safeguard duty. Here is also a big problem. The big problem is when the government of India comes forward to impose anti-dumping duty or safeguard duty on the imported product, immediately huge protests come from the consumers of the products in India. These consumers who import the product at a comparatively low price, and when the government of India puts their import anti-dumping duty or safeguard duty, they will pay a higher price. They don't want that. Then they say this will lead a chain effect. A lot of other downstream products will go up and protest to the government of India not to put the import duties. Because of these protests, in several cases, government of India is not able to come forward to impose anti-dumping duty or safeguard duty. This is another one reason. Now, let us look into the picture. Earlier, we discussed about India's inability to find solutions for the emission issues because of the limitations, like various measures that have been initiated, such as the government of India's move to have electric vehicles or ethanol blending with petrol, renewable energy, all of them are limited. So I suggested earlier, India should exercise some alternate options. What is the alternate option? One alternate option for India is algae biofuel. Algae is a crop, is a quick growing crop. It contains around 20 to 25% of oil, depending on the species of the algae. An algae crop does not need anything except good sunshine, we have plenty, good carbon dioxide, we have in plenty, and some nutrients, and even wastewater or coastal seawater, that good salty water, that should be enough for growth of algae. We have all these kind of things in plenty. So we should go algae in a big way. Here, what is happening here is, when algae contains around 20 to 25% oil, and when the algae oil is squeezed out and it is transfer esterified, it becomes a biodiesel, which can be mixed with the diesel and used for various transportation and other purposes. Now, while squeezing out the algae oil from the algae crop, you also find there are a number of co-products. Number one co-product is a methane, otherwise known as natural gas. We also get hydrogen. We also get ethanol. These are all excellent value-added products. So what the government of India should do today is cultivate 1,000 acres of algae in each area, have at least 100 algae-based integrated projects where algae crop is grown, and when the oil is taken out and squeezed to make diesel, the same site use the methane for the production of power and distribute the power to local areas. When 100 plants or 120 plants are set up across the country, there will be significant availability of the biofuel, which will have some good impact on the import dependence on the crude oil and natural gas and reduction of the reduced emission, because it's an excellent biofuel. Now, one important thing that to be noted here is, as far as the algae crop is concerned, because it can be grown in the marshy land, it can be grown in the salty land, it can be grown in a wasteland. It is not cropping algae is not coming in conflict with the growth of cultivation of food grain. It's a very, very plus point. A lot of research are being carried out abroad. Some sort of a success has also been reached abroad, but very little work has been done in India, and we need the government of India to make up the algae biofuel project with high level of urgency that it deserves. Now, having looked into this, let us look into one more session to overcome the issue. Here, what we are suggesting is, we will say, let us go for what we call as a methanol complex. As I said earlier, India imports around 2.4 million tons of methanol per year. Indian production of methanol is much, much less. There are few methanol plants in operation in the country. All the methanol plants in operation in the country are based on imported natural gas. Because of the cost factors with the landed natural gas price, the cost of production of methanol in India is much higher than the cost of production of methanol in some other countries like Saudi Arabia or Iran or somewhere else where natural gas is available in plenty. So you find a situation, Indian units are unable to compete with imported methanol in terms of the price factors. So what is the alternative? Methanol is a very strong building blocks. So what we submit here is, let India go ahead and set up a number of methanol plants abroad. And it should be set up in countries where natural gas is adequately available, and such friendly countries. For example, I can suggest we can set up this kind of project in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a friendly country where a lot of natural gas is available. So Indian government should facilitate Indian private promoters, or probably some overseas joint ventures, to set up at least 6 to 7 methanol plants in such countries abroad, which with a capacity of at least 5 million ton per annum. Then after producing the methanol, with the natural gas that is available at those prices, the cost of production of methanol is going to be globally competitive. Then let the methanol produced by Indian units abroad be brought to India. Having brought to India, now let us set up a large methanol complex. That's why we are given a flow sheet here. See, one of the very important products that can come out of methanol is olefin, methanol to olefin plant. Number of plants are in operation in China with reasonable success. Methanol to olefin means you will have ethylene and propylene. Today, a number of ethylene-based plants like styrene or PVC are not being produced adequately due to want of ethylene. Number of propylene-based plants are not produced adequately, such as acrylonitrile, due to want of propylene. And we are unable to have ethylene and propylene in adequate quantity because transport of ethylene is very difficult. It's a very hazardous material. When you get the methanol here and produce ethylene and propylene from the imported methanol, from our own methanol plant abroad, the ethylene can facilitate setting up a large number of downstream products. It will be a very, very win situation. Apart from this, India presently imports around 8 lakh tons of acetic acid. Set up a lot of acetic acid plants based on methanol. Number of other suggestions can be given. Not only this, from methanol, we can produce dimethyl ether, DME, which is a very, very eco-friendly fuel and which is produced and used in good quantity in China. DME biofuel is an excellent substitute for LPG from the point of the ecological factors and availability. With the production of DME from methanol in India, the import of LPG can be brought down and production of LPG can be reduced. To the extent import dependence on crude oil and natural gas can come out. So I think this is a very, very valid session which we have to look into it. Now let us look into what is the merits of the session to go for methanol complex. Number one, by importing methanol from abroad, methanol will be available for Indian units at globally competitive price. We are not going to have a disadvantage. To the extent import of methanol from other countries produced by other companies will be brought down considerably because we will be getting methanol from all Indian units abroad. Number two, from methanol, you will make methanol olefin, where ethylene and propylene will be produced. A number of downstream products will be produced from ethylene and propylene. In addition to this, methanol can be used for the production of dimethyl ether, which is going to be a very eco-friendly fuel. And finally, this methanol complex will be a win-win situation for the country, considerably reducing the import dependence on crude oil and natural gas, considerably reducing the emission level from the various fossil fuel being used, and given this India's constraints of stagnant production of crude oil and natural gas, probably in addition to the number of strategies which government of India has taken, which are all very, very appropriate strategies and good strategies, the decision to go for algae biofuel and decision to set up a massive methanol complex in India based on methanol produced abroad by Indian units could be an excellent solution for India to come out of the present challenges and utilize the opportunities. Thank you very much.